Hey Barbara, informal video for you. You asked me a question and I wanted to answer it. It was here. Could the tree in the middle of the garden be our subconscious awareness that there truly is a higher self, and as ego develops through life experience, slither into our thought patterns, telling us we aren't good enough to be that higher self, thus beginning the learning of shame as we hide and begin disassociating with the authentic higher awareness. The journey of healing is the path from the storyline situation we are born into as we go back to the higher awareness. All right, let me talk about that one a little bit. What you're doing is exactly the right thing. These are complicated old stories, and you start out with this what we're doing is using our modern knowledge and biases and putting towards the story and trying to figure out what they've got going on. We have to pull ourselves out a little bit and put ourselves back in their time and understand that we've got some knowledge and understanding that they didn't have. So we sometimes put more into it than they probably were putting into it. We have to be careful, but there is certainly something in there. And the tree in the middle of the garden is very important, but it represents something. Okay, let's talk about the process a little bit more. This is what's happening in that part of Genesis right there. Something that is incredibly important to say right here is that though this teaching can be like the same thing as the Tao Te Ching, the outer impact of the Tao Te Ching is nothing. You take this internal path, you can live the lifestyle of a Taoist. The peaceful, it's like a Buddhist lifestyle. You can do that. But the teaching from the Dhammapada, from the Tao Te Ching, is actually a very simple teaching. Everybody's teaching is going to be that way. However, it can get more and more complicated with a different impact. Lifestyle changes. Now, when it comes to Abraham, not only is it lifestyle, here, you can live this lifestyle, but it's also some sort of mental control. There's something else going on in there that even takes a person's mind and elevates them. They immediately demonize other humans by believing in this one. Oh, we are God's chosen. There's a process you can see that goes on that everything from Abraham has a different impact than other world teachings. Even though they're on the same template, Abraham carrier shell is going to be highly destructive and have a different impact. And what it's doing in there in the beginning is trying to create the illusion that there was an actual creation. And it's still holding the template. We have to extract ourselves from that. But that is what makes so many people go, gee, it's true. You can look at it honestly, logically, and go, come on, really? Seriously. But look at how humans are. Look at how they are anyway. They don't care. All right, so the Garden of Eden is the mind. It's a mind state of a child, of any and all of us as little kids before we start having our life experiences that hurt us. We're happy, laughing little kids. We are in the Garden of Eden. Mentally, you got to close your eyes and get there. This is the Garden of Eden. In here, not out there. Once we're in here in this happy little place, what is in there? Is it in the middle? Where is it? You can eat of anything there. You can live all life experiences, but don't eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. Don't learn the difference between or good and bad, hurt and joy. That you're going to come off balanced. In the beginning, you don't know that. There's a perfect place to be right there. So they don't want you to learn the difference between good and evil. And then what was the other one? The tree of life. That would be a tree of understanding. Now, if in the story, what if they wrote the story in a way that you didn't partake of either tree? Or what if they wrote it in such a way that you partake of the tree of life? It would go different. What happens here? Nope, you're going to go the bad course. However, there are people live this that don't take that bad course. There are people who don't consume from that tree. They have wonderful lives and they don't come around later going, God, I hate those bastards. They don't do all of that stuff. They can be coming from a different place, but that's not most people. So there's options out of this. Cain and Abel, you could have been Abel instead of Cain. When it gets to time for the flood, most people on the planet get to right there. Boy, just look at politics today. People get right there and they stop. The world is raucous and needs to be destroyed, but guess what? It's a personal path and they're never going to destroy their world. It's going to sit looking like it is and we're going to go downhill. Anyway, so there's options in the material to take different paths. But we get so caught up in modern biases that we put too much into these stories. If we were to go to another teaching, okay, I don't know if you know the Greek myth, creation. There's a point where Zeus has created the world and people, and the people are very primitive. They're not advanced at all. And Zeus wants them to stay that way. However, Prometheus, one of the other gods, thinks that that's bad. Humans should not be so primitive. They need to advance. So he gives them fire. Zeus gets mad at him, takes the fire away. I'm abbreviating the story. Prometheus decides, no, they need fire. He gets them fire again, so there's a repeat there. And Zeus, for punishment for him doing that, the humans now have fire and they advance. What happens is that Zeus puts Prometheus chained to a cliff in hell, purgatory, whatever, having his liver eaten out by an eagle. The Greeks thought the liver was the seat of emotion. So he's getting the cyclical pain element right here. He gets his liver eaten out, it grows back. It's painful. He gets it eaten out again, it grows back. So there's this emotional, repetitive, cyclical pain going on. Right there's the cyclical pain. In the Genesis story, where is it? You will have pain you will continue to have pain in childbirth. Cyclical pain, cyclical pain. Those two stories line up right there. Adam and Eve were the people that were primitive. Zeus wanted them to stay primitive. God wanted them to not eat of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. However, they did it anyway and they got punished. However, Prometheus gave them fire anyway and they advanced and they punished. So you look at these and go, there's no tree in there. There's no subconscious. There's different things going on. The template is much simpler than that. They are carrying the same thing. The idea is that we come from this higher place, that we start out very simple. However, we're going to have experiences in life that are going to cause us to advance. And as a result, there's going to be cyclical pain that is going to happen. Now, that story, like this one, continues on. So we have to be careful about looking at so much detail on one. The more you look at across the board, the more it's easier to see that they're doing something as simple as, if you went to the Tao Te Ching, the naming is the origin of all particular things, and caught in desire, you see only the manifestations. So now I've had a life experiences that I have attached memory and emotion to, and as a result, I'm going to continue to see the cyclical return of it. Bingo. That's it right there. The tree represents that. There's different paths you can take. You might have eaten from the other tree, didn't go bad. You were raised in a monastery or something like that. However, you could go past that, get into life experiences. However, as a child, you've got options to have a bad life or a good life, but instead of becoming Cain, you become Abel. You become a more elevated person as opposed to somebody that's going, I'm going to just go live my life, go down to the factory and, talk about how I hate people that are not like me, all that kind of stuff. You might not become Cain. You might become Abel, who goes, you know what? We need to work together. We need to be a better people. So there's alternatives out of here. We're the people actually that went all the way down to the world needs to be destruction, and now we become Noah. Well, that's the pathway we're on. That's what this is. Or in the Greek myth, you'd become the hero there. You'd become Jason, going and sailing with the Argonauts to go destroy the creatures from the past after sailing through the clashing rocks, going into the mine. Exodus, going through the Red Sea and into the desert, all of that there. So the story elements can sound radically different while they're still doing the same thing. And the tree really just represents something that is a normal process. If you look back on your life, we didn't know these things. We start out living from a high place. We're not attached to our memories, but we're alive and happy. But we don't have memories. Then we understand that as time goes by, the memories that we have that we hold on to and don't let go of, or that we have to live through our memories, even if they're good memories. When you're a little kid, you cannot live through, you can't make decisions until you know enough. Then you can make decisions. So this is really making decisions, qualifying things, eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil continuously, living life daily, having those experiences. And you know what? I want to say, I've added this in editing. The consumption in the spiritual world that the Jews use is really about learning. What am I taking in? And you can fast as to the world. I'm not consuming anything. You can consume fish and loaves and have many left over. You can consume dainty meats from Solomon. We're going to go here to so-and-so's We're going to go to the, it was just in the other video, the leper Simon or the Pharisee's house to eat meat. And then this situation happens. That's how we go, okay, I'm going to go to this part where the bad memory is, and I'm going to look at it. I'm going to consume it. Instead of going, I hate it, I'm not looking at it, I'm turning away from it, you're turning to look at it, and you're going to go to this bad place to consume there. You're going to consume what's there, and you're going to fill it with love and forgiveness from the inner part that's there. The stories are really sort of these wonderful little healing stories. They can be hard to unwrap. They're very old. We are stuck in our modern biases. When Jesus crosses the threshold of the baptismal, leaving the earlier situation behind, John represented the outer teaching. Jesus represents the inner teaching. He crosses the threshold, spends 40 days in the wilderness, and gathers up 12 disciples, and the adventure begins. King Arthur gathers up the knights, and supernatural aid comes from Merlin, and they go to seek the Holy Grail, as opposed to the kingdom of heaven within. There's a pattern, something going on in the background that becomes evident that it's so thick people really can't see it, obviously. If I talk about this and it sounds weird, I mean, I can see it now after looking at it for a long time. I go, okay, I got it. But it took such a long time, and for most of my life, I never saw this. It really takes looking at it and trying to study it to even understand it. But there's a common inner teaching that is there that I can now see, that is available for us through analysis. But it would have taken, the age of it, they would have lived through this. We are not. They had it memorized. We do not. They knew how many times nouns and verbs were repeated. We do not. We are so mentally far removed from the comprehension of what is in here, or even being able to see it. There's people that look at you and go, you're just, what are you talking about? My gosh. Meanwhile, it's such a conceptually deep thing that you have to just work at it to get there. Yeah, it's almost like learning a hobby. You get good at it by doing it, and if you don't do it, you don't get good at it. Period. Yeah. Okay, so that's what that represents right there. I think it's easy to put a lot into it without realizing this is just the idea that when you started out, I'm happy. Now I live through these memories. I have to heal from those memories. Oh, okay, now I can be happy. Only this time I'm consciously aware of that happiness instead of just being unaware of it. Now I can balance the difference, and I'm here by choice, as opposed to when I was a kid, I couldn't balance the difference. I had no capacity. I had no experience. I didn't have the mind skill sets to be able to do that yet. Now we're getting there. Anyway, okay, so I hope that helps. Did I cover, let me make sure I look at this here. The subconscious awareness that there truly is a higher self. I don't think so. Slither into our thought patterns, tell us. No, I think what's happening is it's just a natural, normal process. Yeah, we're just having life experiences, and as a result, we're losing the childhood innocence. These are not conscious choices. These are normal things. Just learning the shame as we hide. Those are just things that happen as a product of our life experiences. Some people may not learn shame. And there are different brain types that probably wouldn't even feel it. Yeah, okay. All right, so I hope that helps. Here's another one added in on editing. This is a pretty random video here. I didn't plan anything. The idea of the serpent itself, to me, is... It seems to me like this makes sense. And I heard a Jewish guy talking about this one time, and he was not interpreting in the manner that I am, but the thing that he was saying is, why would the serpent, be chosen here anyway? Here is something that has no legs, has no wings. It can never get off the ground. And I went, oh, that's it right there. Because they're teaching here to begin with, you're not going to be living from an elevated place. You're going to be living through the physical experience. You're going to attach to what you see happening. You're not going to understand that cause and effect is happening, and what you see happening in the physical manifestation is the effect. So when you respond to it, you are then becoming part of an ongoing negative process, as opposed to stepping back and going, oh, that's a flow going on that I'm jumping on the end of. If you could understand this as a core teaching, is that we are always flowing. Life is always unfolding. We're always either in the Tao or being blessed, or, bless those who bless you or curse those who curse you. we're always flowing in life in accordance with the general state of our emotional condition, whether it is conscious at the time or stored away. And that in order to change the way we experience life, we have to forgive the odd against our brother, to resolve the issues that we're holding in our mind. Those are the memories that we're going to live through. It's something that simple, if that makes any sense. So what happens then is the serpent does indeed represent that idea. If we see during Eve's punishment, not only are you going to have cyclical pain in childbirth, but also you're going to go work the land, you're going to toil from it, you're not going to reap the benefits from it. This represents the idea you're now going to go off and live life experiences blindly, physically. If you're consuming from the life experience right there, that's what this represents. Spiritual, what does it represent? I'm going to be consuming life from my world experience based on what I'm putting into it because I'm unaware of it, and I'm going to not get the benefits from the full benefits from it. This is really being attached to the ground right here. And the serpent makes a good analogous representation of that idea right there. I don't remember the guy saying it, but I remember that. That's perfect. Of course, it cannot elevate ever above the ground. And as long as you are continually living life experiences by looking at things happening and responding to it, that's you right there. Honestly, in the Greek story, it was Prometheus that held that same role. Prometheus is the one that gave them fire. The serpent is the one that tempted them with the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, which it advanced both of them from their simple, naked, unashamed, primitive state into life. You see that? We can put a lot into these. I always try to remember to put myself, if I can, try to pretend like I'm an uneducated but an intelligent, like if I've got my brain but no schooling, because they didn't have schooling from thousands of years ago, and we can get here. Today people struggle. They think you need schooling to get here when it's like, well, what the hell did they do back then? The biases that in modernity have got people so boogered up they don't even want to see something like this. People ask, what kind of a degree do you have? Oh, you don't have one? Then you must not know anything. They cannot get out of modern biases. I do understand the issue. What I'm doing is interpreting the material and describing the psychological process, and people go, you sound like you've been to school. Where have you gone to school? And you know what? I'm teaching the material that I'm interpreting. That's what I'm doing. I'm not telling anybody what I learned in school. I'm just extracting this from the template after interpreting and interacting with it. If you interpret it in a way that makes it mentally interactive, this is exactly what happens. All right, well, people are kind of full of themselves. Lots of ego, lots of I can't think, and if you can't explain it in 10 minutes, we live in a different world. They were living through these, we give them a cursory glance. So it is lost to society, I think. It really is. It's too complicated. And when I talk to people about it, some people will say, that's been debunked. You show them videos and they're like, I'm not going to watch some 45-minute video on it. And you realize what the deal is. Thousands of years ago, what were you going to do? You'd spend, this would be what you wanted to do you'd be picking this apart for years. Exploring and finding new things in it all the time. It's very complicated, and today people that think they're smart, and they can't figure it out. They can't see what's there. They will call it true or say it's false, but straight up, this right here is exactly in the material. The story itself, the teaching itself, not just the Bible, but every story in the Bible, every myth and religion that contains this template is a metaphorical arc. Carried by many, seen in by few. Many stand outside the narrow gate where outward all the directions leading outward lead to destruction. But there's just, I'm paraphrasing that. I don't recall what it is. This is it. The template is the inner pathway. Outward, when you see it, you go, man, and they're all framed on this. This has to be it. This is what everyone is telling you. If you can get to it, this is where you need to get to. And if not, you're going to carry it. and it may influence your life. And something else to be very cognizant of is that if this was 100 years ago, we wouldn't have done this. The only reason I'm able to do it now is because I have a computer to serve as the memory that I don't have. Since I don't have the story memorized, I can do all the searching I need to with the computer. The computer has absolutely been necessary for me to find that numbering grid. Without it, I would never have seen it. That would have required having it memorized. Yeah, the computer was a key component. I don't believe in supernatural, but I think we're here from something. I want to know what that is. This material tells us that. And it tells us not many are going to make it. So I like to think that there's an option that we can explore and try to learn and understand. And as I see things here that I go, I see patterns across here that are not easy to see. The more you see and the more you learn, the easier they become. You know, a rotating wheel following you with pain doesn't sound like the same thing as a tree growing up and getting cut down, grows back again until it's pulled out by the root. Those don't sound the same at all. Something being tied down, like going through clashing rocks or going through the Red Sea. Oh, those kind of sound the same, don't they? Yeah, those ones you can look at and go, whoa, those are kind of close. But the tree and the wheel, those kind of ones, there's a different depth to where you're realizing, okay, the wheel is showing a cyclical pain, cause and effect, based on what is in the hub, based on what is here that you've picked up along the way. Pain continues to follow, like the wheel follows the hoof of the ox that draws the carriage. I'm the hoof of the ox, or I'm the ox drawing the carriage through life. That's me going through life, and pain continues to follow me. But the tree growing up that gets cut down, that is a cyclical thing as well. If the tree needs to be gone, cutting it down, you have to pull it out by the root. It's hard to see that they're both teaching the idea that something that is in a seed, a core teaching, a core belief, is causing something to continue to come around or to emerge, and that just cutting it down, and what would that represent? If the seed is still there, the root is still there, then you cut it down, that would be like, this is something growing out of my garden. The seed itself is still there. If I've cut it down, that means I probably acted out and said, I'm sorry, I don't know what I did. I lost control. I promise not to do it again. It cut down, but without the root being gone, guess what? When it triggers, it comes out again, and you're like, I don't know why I do that. Yeah, this is it right here. They're teaching that fun stuff. All right, but it's not, I laugh about it now because I can assure you there was a lot of tears to get to a point where you're okay. There's a lot of hurt sometimes along the way. So anyway, all right. Hope this was helpful. I think sometimes we put too much modern detail into it. So when a lot of medical terms and things like that come into play, or not necessarily medical, but maybe modern psychological terms or things like that, they are doing that. They are. Sometimes your thought has to get to a certain place. There's times people will hit me with things, something like, do you think they're doing this left brain, right brain thing? And it's like, no. Think 6,000 years ago. What did they know medically? I don't even know right brain, left brain. This is higher awareness, conscious, very interactive, very interactive. Be careful with the verbiage. What they finished with was something here was a puzzle that could be interacted with for self-healing, to find the way to inner peace and the way back to the higher awareness, to live in a way that we're not living in the pain and the hurt. Well, as best as we can. Quite honestly, we'd have to get into this more. I don't think anybody cares about talking about this stuff, though. They go to all the way to a monastic level of letting go of everything, but even, living with begging bowls in some cases, and it's in this kind of a mendicant monk sort of a way in order to be detached. And I have no interest in a life like that. I like my house. I like my soft bed, my refrigerator, my wife, our relationship, the vehicles, things like that. I'm not going to live a monastic lifestyle. So there are things that I am going to somehow naturally hold on to a little bit more than a monk might hang on to. So it's not always going to be a perfect fit. We have to manage our mental connection with our life experience. Fasting is to the world is a psychological process. It is. It means Stop looking at it. Those are the things that we attach to that you need to. One of the ways to stop attaching to the world is to stop looking at all of the things that are finally done. Now, there's things you have to deal with. I'm not suggesting to just bail out on the world. That's not what I mean. I mean mentally attaching to them without understanding something at a deeper core. I mean, you want to stop that parent that's whipping the child. But at the same time, you want to understand that this parent whipping the child was once a child being whipped by a parent who was probably once a child being whipped, that you're seeing a series of things and you should not look at it and judge it as this worthless person should not be having children. You should look at it with compassion and go, damn, this is the world in which we live and we're trying to emerge from. We have to detach mentally while still living there. And it's the way that we look at it and understand it. Fasting is to the world means to emotionally detach from the anguish that just you live through that. You become a part of it. So all of these are meaningful teachings that just have to be unwrapped, and they would make sense. Being naked, being uncovered. Oh yeah, okay. I no longer hide that. I used to didn't want anybody to ever know that. It was too shameful. Now, I don't care. Doesn't bother me anymore. I was the one creating the damage in my own mind. Guess what? Nobody cares. I was ruining my life and had too much fear to get in to interfere with that. Anyway, okay, I'm getting into the whole teaching process. That's what's happening in the material here. That's as you take the path, those are the teachings. And they're difficult to see, that whole going into, the bad person's house and having the healing happen, and that you're like, okay, this has to play out in the mind. Make it fit. What is it? It has to make sense on a healing process as a psychological process. That's what they were doing. It was many things to them. Imagine life with nothing really, what would people be doing? This would be like equivalent to their media. They're building, they're doing things, they're developing, they're creating math, they're studying the stars, they're learning all manner of things, including this right here. Yeah. And they're making stories, and they're brilliant. And today we've gotten so smart, we've become stupid. We know too many things without knowing very many things very well. Plato, I don't recall where this came from. This is second-hand knowledge, but it makes sense. He had made a comment that because writing had become so prevalent, the scrolls had become so prevalent during his time, that he found that minds were becoming weaker, people were becoming dumber. And that's pretty counterintuitive to what you would think, wouldn't you? It's like, I couldn't read or write once. Now I have access to all these books and I can read or write. I can get all kinds of information. And the point that he was making as he went on was that at one point in time, people had stories memorized, and you could sit down with somebody and have a big book, big Genesis or something like that. If you had it memorized, you could sit and have a deep discussion back and forth. However, as people began to read and the scrolls came about, if you sat down and tried to talk with somebody about it, they would have to say, hang on a second, I got to go look this up. I got to go get a scroll. I got to go see it. I've read it. It's available, but they didn't know it in the same way, and they stopped memorizing it. So it became more difficult to access the deeper. There's patterned codes in here that are in repeats that you would only know through memorization. And without the memorization, you don't know the repeats are there. Genesis is full of them. Yeah, the whole Bible is. Actually, there is an option. You could go through word by word and count them one at a time. That would be crazy. That's why it's hard to see. The computer will reveal it. This is mental stuff. It's made to be played out in the mind. Our minds are full of what to do for dinner and did I clean up the dog shit? Yeah. Well, or whatever. Unnecessary things for life. Our lives are so busy and so full of things, we lose the simplicity. And sometimes, I don't know if humans were designed or evolved for simplicity. We would have been busy all the time doing basic survival things. And if you had food, you would be fixing skins, clothes, something. It's going to get cold. You're gathering wood. It's we live a completely different life these days. Anyway, well, this is getting off into random area that you didn't even talk about. This must be Lonely Dan, huh? All right. Hey, I'll talk to you later. Thanks for the question.